Hello, welcome to 15 Minutes of Consulting Best Practices. My name is Maria Isabel Rios, and as you can tell, David is still in Italy on vacation, and I'm still jealous. So if you're joining today, say hello and participate, right? Let's make this discussion lively. I'm here today to answer your questions about how to create success and traction for you and for your consulting firm, and therefore bring delight to your clients and to your work. So we start by answering questions. We encourage participation. If you're familiar with the space, you know it takes me a minute to see your comments, your questions, and the discussion only gets better when we all chime in. So as you arrive, type your question. What's your question of the day? What's on your mind that brought you here? And Jaren, please share the question that came in as we were working during the week. And hello, John. Thank you for coming in bright and early to say hello. Happy Monday to you too. We have a client who agrees to things and says yes during our discovery conversation, and then we submit a proposal, and what they say they want is completely different. Ay, ay, ay. How are we supposed to handle that? And this question is from Grant. So thank you, Grant, for sharing your question. I am afraid this is not as atypical as it sounds. So thank you for adding to the discussion. And for all of us who have faced this problem before, again, feel free to chime in and to add to the discussion. One suggestion, because you know or you have a feeling this is coming, right? You're anticipating this is coming. As you design your engagement, leave room for the changes you anticipate will come. You will leave room in your fees, in the timeline on your project, and in the team configuration, very importantly. So this may also mean you do not assign a too junior, too inexperienced, or even a too taxed team to this client, right? A team that is already feeling very pressured or that has a very tight timeline in another engagement or that is very fractional. Do not assign it to this client if you anticipate things are going to change midway through. One option when you're thinking about fees is to think about Colorado pricing. And I think we talked about Colorado pricing a couple of weeks ago. Jaren, remind me if that's correct, right? 2 weeks ago. Thank you, Jaren. All right. So 2 weeks ago, come back, watch our LinkedIn Live recording from 2 weeks ago if you're scratching your head and wondering what I'm talking about. There's also a great article in the blog about Colorado pricing. It basically allows you to talk to your client about setting fees and then being able to change the scope as you go through. Hello, Daniel. And hi, John. Good to see you. Another element to consider for this client grant. Once you have started a project, set up mechanisms to periodically confirm that the project is on track and that you deliver to your client's wants and needs. Also creates a mechanism that allows you to very candidly push back on your client when it's appropriate. So if staying the course on your project will add more or equivalent value to your client than shifting priorities, which is what your client is asking you to do, say so, right? If changing course causes delays and confuses your client team members, also say so. So create a space that is safe for you and safe for your client to have a transparent conversation about all the implications of changing course. So do not be afraid to name the problem. Invite the client to problem solve with you, right? We've noticed that oftentimes we start a project addressing one thing and then we need to pivot. Are you open to spending 20 minutes problem solving how to figure it out earlier so that we avoid pivoting? That way you have an ally instead of somebody that is facing you in an antagonistic way. All right, hopefully that's helpful. And for all of you who are listening today, what is your question, right? Pose your question or pose your comment, pose your addition. Hello, Teklai. Let me know what your questions are today. And As there are no questions that I can see yet, Jaron, why don't you share the next question that came in? Okay, this question is from Abby. Thank you, Abby. Abby says, I'm trying to wrap my head around how much we should share with a prospect without sharing too much. Oh, okay. What's the right balance? Okay, so in that BD phase, trying to find the right balance between sharing too much, I'm thinking IP, or too much knowledge about the solution versus keeping it all to yourself and share it later in the process. So good question, Abby. It's one we often ponder, right, while we're doing BD. In general, be right set up, right? Be generous with the framing of your model. I think anything that is your view of the world, how do you see projects evolving? What have you learned of what works best in the context of delivering a project, or how you frame the problem? Be generous, very generous with that. Resist the temptation instead to convert discovery into problem-solving sessions. Where we see we get into a lot of trouble is when we kind of can smell the solution in the conversation and we're saying, okay, we're going to jump right into problem solving. And now we're away from discovery and we're right into trying to fix and solve the problem right there and there. That's a boundary you don't want to cross just yet in discovery. So ask inquisitive questions, say what happens more often than not, stay away from giving out solutions or developing solutions right then and there. With few exceptions, discovery is generally not the right moment to take on an analysis of your client's business or to produce a preliminary assessment, unless you're clearly giving somebody a sneak peek into a much larger piece of IP. So, Abby, think about it. What's the right balance into I'm giving you a piece of my IP versus revealing the whole world? I'm doing a bit of an analysis versus doing a whole diagnostic, but be generous with your framing, be generous with your model, understand whether you're a good fit for each other. All right, hopefully that's helpful. All right, John, I can see your question first, so I'm going to address it first. You're asking, what's a typical sales cycle time frame? It seems like it takes forever to close sometimes. Yeah, we're with you, right? One of the biggest shifts we have seen since pre-COVID, let's say, days to post-COVID days is that the average sales cycle has almost doubled, right? And it's not true for everybody in every industry. It's not true for every client either. But where it used to take sometimes 2-3 months to close a project, now we're seeing sometimes it takes 6 months on average to close the same project. So don't be discouraged. The trick on all of this, or the clue on all of this, is how do you maintain momentum in a slower than before? I'm not going to say slower than usual. I wish I could say slower than usual, but maybe this is our new usual, unfortunately, right? How do you maintain momentum in a slower than before context? And maintaining momentum is how do you keep a conversation going in a way that it's not artificial? And John, I can hear and I can read you saying sometimes it takes 2 years, right? Hopefully not, right? And what do you mean when you say 2 years? You start initial conversations with somebody, they're like, yeah, we want to address this problem, and they have a problem in their head. Sometimes it takes them that long to formulate what the problem is, decide they want to invest on solving it. Then the need becomes urgent, and now you're in conversation. It typically takes anywhere between a couple of months to 6 to 8 months, we've seen, from the moment folks are like, okay, we're ready, to the moment they sign on the line in your proposal. Maintain a regular touch points throughout, even if they are 10, 15 minutes long. What's the newest and latest, and establish what are the milestones that will let you know whether the next step can be taken, whether your client is ready to move on to the next phase, what the decision makers are thinking, or whether they have all the information they need to decide. So think about it, John, as you're looking at timelines. How do you maintain the relationship warm? How do you maintain a level of momentum without eroding the relationship that brought you to that point, and without making it seem like you're desperate, right, in an attempt? So very light touch, very right side up, make it about your client, but also keep pace in the process. All right, hopefully that's helpful. Let me know in the comments as well. And everybody else, you can chime in as John Gilbert just did. And thank you, John. Suzanne, you're asking, I'm exploring pivoting my business and wondering what techniques you suggest for assessing market demand. Thank you so much. This is a great way to kick my brain into the week. You're welcome, Suzanne. All right. What do we suggest for assessing market demand? To assess market demand, the best way is to ask folks, right? You want to fish where the fish are. You want to find fertile markets. And the easiest way to do that is to ask people, what are they actually investing in? What problems are they investing to solve? So whether you are in conversations with folks, which we hope you are, Suzanne, right? And you're asking, what is their most pressing problem? What is the need they actually have that it's urgent for them, that they need to solve? And also knowing, where are they putting their money, right? And make sure this is not a theoretical problem they have. It's a problem they're actually prioritizing enough to invest in, right? So hopefully that's helpful to you and it gives you an idea. We can go deeper into that if you're all interested, and let me know in the comment and we'll address it in the following weeks. John, you're adding to the Capricious clients. Exactly. Exactly. It's about keeping communications going, and how do you maintain that open channel of communication with your clients? A lot of what we've talked about today, right? A client that it's capricious. How do you share too much? Your question, Suzanne, about how do you know where to go? Or the question of how do you structure proposals? It's about asking questions and remaining in that frame of curiosity, right? It's about asking what's more present, what's the urgent need, how do we solve this problem? Or saying, we've observed this behavior, tell me what's behind it, in a way that invites conversation and invites joint problem solving. So think from the perspective of your clients, it's about them. And the more you're in the framework of how do I add value to this person, of course, respecting boundaries, right? Respecting your frameworks, respecting your IP, respecting the value that you bring to the table. But how do you add value in a way that also respects you? The easier that it's going to be for all of you to find the right market, to find the right clients, and to hear really what is the most pressing need, and to find that pathway to solve the roadblock that's keeping you from closing. And with that, we found, we're at the end of our 15 minutes for today. So we have a few things that we want to ask for you before I leave. So one of them is put Monday Live on your calendars if you haven't done already this space, right? And to do that, thank you, Jaren, for sharing the link. If you have a recurring event on your calendar and you add the link that Jaren just shared, davidafields.com/Monday Live, you'll come here and you'll either see me or David and myself every Monday, and you get to ask your questions and get to contribute to the questions of others. Also, if you haven't yet subscribed to the articles that come out of every Wednesday, please do so. They're full with tactical, practical advice, the comments, and the extra iterations in the commentary from all the participants in the tribe are gold as well. So davidaffields.com/subscribe. And lastly, if you're not connected with David or with me, and you happen to jump into the space, please connect with us. We always like to connect with you and learn more about you and your practices. And thank you for joining me today. Remember, consulting is not about us. It's about our clients. It's about our prospects. It's about them. So make sure you keep that focus on being right side up throughout the week. And that's how you will create success for you and for them. Join us next week. Bye. Thank you.